Hello to my fifth graders, almost sixth graders. You only have 9 more school days left in this entire school year, which is super exciting. I hope that you all have realized that and are getting excited about it. I know that this distance learning situation has been difficult. It's been stressful. It's been frustrating at times, but do not let yourself get off track. You are almost there. You only have 9 more days. So let's finish strong. I know that you all are really excited about finishing fifth grade, and a lot of you have been wondering and asking what the end of fifth grade is going to look like in terms of celebration, graduation, that type of thing, because we aren't at school, so it's not like it would normally be. Please know that we are just as excited as you about graduation and about you graduating. We're very proud of you. We are super excited to have the opportunity to recognize and honor you for all of your hard work. So, with that being said, make sure that you and your parents are staying tuned and staying updated on news from the office, updates that you might be getting from Miss Hawkins, Miss Harville, me, your other teachers, because that's how we are going to be letting you know what the end of fifth grade is going to look like. So stay tuned. We will let you know what to expect and what we are planning to celebrate you, because we are excited about that, just like you're excited about it. Let's go ahead and talk about what week 6 looks like for our assignments. We are getting back into an example of expository text, informational text, nonfiction, in the Wonders Workbook. It's about oceans this week, which is kind of cool because that's something that you've learned about with Miss Pearson this year in science. So it should be something that you can tap into your background knowledge on. We are practicing the skills of cause and effect, text structure, using context clues, and making inferences, which are all really important skills for you to have as a good reader, elementary school, middle school, high school, and just in life in general. So make sure that you are reviewing those skills and checking for your own understanding. Throughout this video, I will be reviewing all of those skills. I'll be walking you through the workbook pages and walking you through the extra assignment page that was in your packet for making inferences. As usual, there will be timestamps below the title and the description that you can use to go back to certain points in the video if you need to watch any point or any part a second time. So those will be available to you. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump into our review.
Let's take a few minutes to review cause and effect. When you all came into fifth grade, many of you let me know that you felt uncomfortable with the concept of figuring out what is the cause and what is the effect in cause and effect situations. We tackled that confusion by reminding ourselves that cause and effect is very relatable to our lives. Every single day, whether we realize it or not, we think through cause and effect situations. Our brains make those connections every single day. Why? Because every day we make decisions that cause other things to happen, and every single day things happen that our brains try to figure out why they happened. So that is cause and effect. That is essentially how that works. The cause happens first, the effect happens after the cause. The cause explains why something is happening, and the effect tells what happens as a result of that cause. So some examples that we talked about this year, your cause could be that you wake up late in the morning, your alarm doesn't go off, something goes wrong, you're waking up later than you're supposed to. Your effect is that you missed the school bus, and so now you're late for school. This is something that many of us can relate to. Another example where we think about the effect first, maybe you come to school and you see your friend in the hallway and you wave at them and you say hello, and your friend completely ignores you, they brush you off, they don't talk to you. So now you're under the impression that, oh, my friend must be mad at me. That's the effect. That's the result. So now your brain's trying to figure out why. What caused your friend to be mad at you? What did you do or what did you say that might have caused your friend to be responding in this way to you? Real life situations. Our brains work through these all the time. one thing to remember, the cause always happens first and the effect always happens second. But sometimes when you're looking at examples in a passage, in a story, in a text, sometimes it can be written the opposite way. So let's look at some examples of that. The cause in each sentence is circled, the effect is underlined. What you notice right off the bat, if you look at this poster, is that in 3 of these examples, the effect is written first instead of the cause. That might seem tricky, but let's take a look. There is a stain on my shirt because I dropped chocolate on it. Well, that might seem weird that the effect is written first, but oftentimes we speak that way. A lot of the times you might say, "Oh man, now I have a stain on my shirt because I spilled my milk on it." A lot of the times you would say that rather than, "I spilled my milk, so now there's a stain on my shirt." It might sound natural to say it either way. So it's not that weird to have the effect written first, but sometimes it can catch us off guard when we are looking for cause and effect. Sometimes kids think that because the cause happens first that it's always written first. But if you take a look at these examples, you will see that that is not always the case. There are some clue words that will help you. You notice that in both of these examples, the because in the middle lets you know that the cause is being written here. So they're telling you the result and then they're saying because this happened. This happened because this happened. This happened because this happened. So your causes are signaled by that signal word because. Up here you have your causes written first and then your effects at the end. So it works either way. You just need to be able to tell which is which, and you need to remember that although the cause happens first, it isn't always written that way. As long as you can remember that, you will be just fine with analyzing examples of cause and effect. Okay, let's take a couple more minutes to talk about cause and effect. In the first part of our cause and effect review, I wanted to focus more on the concept of cause and effect and making sure that you aren't allowing yourself to get confused when thinking about which part is the cause, which part is the effect. But now I want us to think about it in more of a text structure organizational pattern approach. Because this week with our nonfiction informational passage, you need to be thinking about how cause and effect could apply to that and how the passage can be structured in terms of cause and effect. So in terms of text structure, cause and effect tells how one or more events causes another event to follow as a result. So it's important to remember that one cause could have several different effects. So one thing happens, and then several other things happen as a result. Think about kind of like a domino effect. If you've ever lined up dominoes, and all it takes is you just knock down the first one, what happens after that? The rest of them fall, right? When one thing causes several other things to happen, we call that a domino effect because of how that process works. So a lot of times in informational text, if it's organized with the cause and effect text structure, it will let you know that one cause, one decision, or one action can have several different effects. For example, to think back a little bit, some of you may or may not remember this. In one of our earlier workbooks, we read a poem about an oil spill. And after we read that poem, we talked about the oil spill that happened in the Gulf of Mexico when many of you were babies. And we talked about how there were several different lasting effects from that one cause. The one thing that happened that caused the oil spill to occur had several bad effects on our environment and our economy and all types of things. So that's one example that you can think back on if you remember that. So some questions to think about. What factors contributed to this? What are the consequences or effects which may result from this? Some signal words would be as a result, because, nevertheless, if this happens, then this happens. So that, consequently, that's a big word, but that pretty much means that's a negative effect that comes from something. So like the oil spill example, consequently could be used to talk about some of the bad effects to the environment, to the marine life that was impacted in a negative way. Other examples, effects on poor eating habits, effects of pollution or global warming, effects of a wildfire. A lot of times you will see cause and effect in passages that are about nature and natural processes with science, because cause and effect is a huge part of natural processes and how things happen. Cause and effect can also be seen a lot in history, because the historical events that we study have causes and effects. When we talk about different wars, American Revolution, Civil War, we talk about what caused those wars and what happened as an effect of them. So cause and effect is common when we're talking about science and history, because cause and effect is real life. There are examples of it everywhere you look. So it's important that you be able to pick out the causes and the many effects that can go with those causes when you are reading nonfiction informational text. Let's move into reviewing context clues. You have been working with context clues and learning different strategies for using context clues since you were a little kid and you first started learning about vocabulary. So what is context clues? It's when strong readers come to an unfamiliar word, they can use context clues to help them determine the meaning of the unknown word. So this is a super important skill to have for test taking and reading strategies, but it's also just a great life skill, because the older you get, you will find that you will come into contact with unfamiliar words through things that you're reading, through conversations you're having with other people, and it's going to be important for you to be able to navigate your way through figuring out what that word means. A lot of the times, words will catch us off guard, and in order to be able to figure out what people are talking about, we need to use context clues to help us create a meaning for that unknown word. So there are different types of context clues, and we use the acronym IDEAS in order to remember those different types. So the first one is inference. The meaning is not given, so you must use text clues. So this can be almost the most complicated type of context clue, because this is where the author doesn't really give you a meaning. You have to just straight up figure it out. So here's an example. Don't want to work with Ricardo. So as in, you don't want to work with Ricardo unless you want to hear him talk about himself. He is so arrogant. So the word in this case, if you're looking at this example, the word that's probably going to stand out to you that you may not know is arrogant. So you read this and you're thinking to yourself, what in the world does arrogant mean? Well, let's look back at our sentence. You don't want to work with Ricardo, so it's probably going to be a not good thing if you don't want to work with him, unless you want to hear him talk about himself. So, talk about himself. Arrogant. Somebody that you don't want to be around because all he does is talk about himself. That could help you create a meaning that it's not good, and that maybe it has to do with him being overly confident or a little bit selfish or self-centered, that type of thing. Okay, the next type of context clue, definition. So the meaning of the word is actually explained or defined in the sentence. Ricardo is so arrogant, he thinks he is more important than everyone else. So right there it tells us that the word arrogant means thinking of yourself is more important than other people. Self-centered, same thing. So it directly gives it to you. This one's a little bit easier. The next type, example. An example of the word is in the sentence or nearby sentences. Ricardo is so arrogant. He is always bragging about how great he is at sports. So in this case, it doesn't directly tell you that he thinks he's more important, but someone who's always bragging about how great they are, that's always tooting their own horn, so to speak, that lets you know that they think that they're better or more important than others. So that still gives you the definition or the meaning through an example. Antonym, a word with opposite meaning, is used in the sentence or nearby sentences. Ricardo is so arrogant, he needs to learn to be humble like his little brother Jose. So in this case, in order for you to figure it out, you do have to know what humble means. In order for the antonym to help you, you have to know the meaning of the antonym itself. So if you know that humble means that you are not self-centered, not selfish, not someone who brags, that you're a little bit more laid back and you don't brag about your own accomplishments. If you know that, then you can see that arrogance probably the exact opposite of that. Synonym, words with similar meaning are used in or near the sentence. Ricardo is so arrogant, proud, self-centered, and overbearing. So proud isn't necessarily a bad thing, but we all know that sometimes people take that a little bit too far. There's a difference between being proud and being conceited. So self-centered, overbearing, they're too much. They're proud in a way that is self-centered and overbearing. Those synonyms help you to figure out what arrogant means. So if you didn't know what it meant and you see any of these examples, you can work through the different types of context clues: inference, definition, example, antonym, or synonym, depending on which one they give you, in order to figure out the meaning of the word arrogant. Strong readers will always read the sentences surrounding the unknown word to look for clues. So if you're coming across a word that you really have no idea, or that you think you might know but you're not too sure, you always need to investigate and see which context clues are being given to you. I promise you that if it is on a test, if a word is underlined, that they are going to be asking you for the meaning of it, I promise you they will give you one of these type of context clues. You just have to go looking for it. Context clues are super important tools for you to use while reading and in your everyday life so that you can connect unfamiliar words with their meanings and add them to your vocabulary. Okay, making inferences. This is a skill that, I will be honest, we have talked about this year, but you don't have any notes in your notebook on it, because this is something that we were planning to dig a lot deeper into after spring break. It's not a new skill, but it's a term for what we do when we have to put a little bit more brain power into thinking about what we've read. That's kind of the short explanation for what making inferences is. So we do it all the time, but we don't always talk about it in terms of calling it making inferences. So how do readers make inferences? Good readers make inferences by using their background knowledge and text evidence together in order to understand the text. So when we're doing test prep or we're going over test questions, like when we went over the 18-week assessment, for example, when we're doing that and I talk about that there's a difference between a right there answer and a brain power answer. A right there answer is the type of answer that you read a question, you look back at the text, and you can directly put your finger on the answer. You can go, okay, yep, there it is. And it says it exactly right there. A brain power question requires you to make an inference. So you see a question, you look back through the entire text, and you're like, you know what? I don't directly see this answer, but right here the text says this. And when I think about it and I kind of turn up my brain power a little bit, I think this is going to be the answer. So it requires you to combine what the text is saying with something that you already know in order to figure out the answer to the question. So basically, this is required when the author doesn't completely spell it out for you. You need to be able to make inferences no matter what. So making inferences applies to fiction and nonfiction. Sometimes in a fictional story, the author chooses not to directly give you every detail and make it to where you kind of have to figure it out. In nonfiction, sometimes the author doesn't fully explain a concept, they kind of expect you to be able to use background knowledge that you already know in order to understand it, to understand what they're talking about. And making inferences doesn't only apply to reading. It also applies to real life situations. There are times that you look at a situation in life and you have to kind of infer what's going on. So maybe your friend's acting kind of funny and your friend isn't telling you exactly why they're acting that way, but you've known him or her long enough to know that maybe when they're sad, they act a certain type of way, or when they're angry, they act a certain kind of way. So you can infer and say, oh, okay, well, this happened earlier, and now my friend's acting this way, and my past experience lets me know that when my friend acts this way, it usually means that they're sad, so I can infer that my friend is sad. Making inferences is just simply when you look at a situation or you look at a passage or a story that you're reading, you connect it to things you already know in your brain, and then you make an inference or a judgment based on the combination of that information. We make a lot of inferences in science as well. When you take what you know about something and you combine it with what you're seeing, especially during the scientific investigation process, experiments require making inferences. When you're looking at how an experiment turns out, a lot of times you have to think about what you already know about whatever it is that you're investigating in order to come up with conclusions. So, readers make inferences to figure out things about characters and events in the text that the author doesn't directly tell them. So this could be characters, this could be events, this could be situations. So first, we think, what does the text tell me? So first, you need to look at what is directly explained in the text. Then you think, well, okay, this is what the text is telling me. This is what I already know about that subject or about that character. So if I put those together, what can I come up with? And if you're trying to answer a question, step 3 would be a good time to look back at your answer choices and go, okay, which one of these answer choices matches up the best with the inference that I'm making? So some different thinking stems or thoughts to help get you started. Based on what I read and what I already know, I can predict blank because of blank. This could mean, or my guess is. So another word for an inference would be an educated guess. You have learned about those in science. It's when you don't just randomly guess, you make an educated guess based on what you already know and what you are seeing in front of you. So making inferences just simply means that you are using your brain power a little bit more to dig deeper into the text and figure out what the author isn't directly telling you. It is a really important skill to have, and the more you practice it, the better you will get. I am on page 132 and 133 of your Wonders Workbook. We are looking at an example of expository text, which we've talked about means the same thing as informational text or nonfiction. This is titled Mysterious Oceans. Our essential question is, how are living things adapted to their environment? Read about the adaptation of sea creatures to the deep ocean. You should have some background knowledge, hopefully, about oceans based on what you've learned this year with Miss Pearson. I believe that you all were able to start on that at least before we were out of school abruptly in March. So hopefully you do have some background knowledge that you can refer back to. I personally love learning about the ocean because it is so mysterious and it's just fun to learn about. So for take notes, to set a purpose for reading, look at the photo and read the caption and the title. Next, think about what you want to know, write your purpose here, and keep it in mind as you read. So in this case, they want you to not make a prediction, but think about what the purpose of reading about mysterious oceans could be. As you read, for the first read, make note of interesting words and key details. Okay, you need to number your paragraphs in your book. Paragraph 1, 2, 3, and 4. Paragraphs 1 and 2 says ask and answer questions. So paragraph 1 and 2, what is a question that you can ask and answer about the ocean? Write the question, underline the answer. So based on these first 2 paragraphs, you create a question that is answered in this text. You write your question here, you underline it over here. So pretend that you're the teacher and you are creating a question from these two paragraphs to give your students. That's a good way to think about it. Cause and effect, paragraphs 3 and 4. Circle the text that tells why the deep ocean is a harsh environment. So, if you look at paragraphs 3 and 4, hint, hint, paragraph 3, you should be able to see it directly says that it's a harsh environment. You figure out where it says why it's a harsh environment. So our effect is that it's a harsh environment. Look for the cause. It is in paragraph 3. Hint, hint. You're going to circle that cause. Map. Look at this map and what ocean is the Mariana Trench located. So it is over here. You have to think about what ocean is over there. It also says it in the map. So, author's craft. Why do you think the author begins the text by describing a sea creature? There is no one right answer for this, but think about how this could possibly pull you in. It's a good way to think about it. Okay. Next page, page 134. Once again, you need to number your paragraphs 1, 2, 3, and 4. Paragraphs 1 through 3, so looking at all 3 paragraphs, what allowed scientists to begin exploring the deep ocean for? So cause and effect. Your effect is going to be the exploration of the deep ocean floor. You're going to figure out what allowed them to be able to do that. So figure out where it explains how they were able to start exploring the deep ocean floor. And you're going to answer that here. Then they want you to find the effect of the exploration. So you're going to take the exploration. Here it's an effect. You're figuring out the cause. Then you're going to turn the effect into a cause of itself and figure out what happened as a result of the exploration. So this is kind of like that domino effect. First, something happened that you have to find that allowed them to be able to explore. And then because of the exploration, something else happened. So domino effect. You'll draw a box around the effect of the exploration. Paragraph 4, context clues. How do context clues help you to determine the meaning of bioluminescence? So bioluminescence, it's not underlined or in bold, but it's right here. Each has a bioluminescence or naturally glowing lure on the top of its head. Think about our IDEAS acronym, and if you want to go back in the video to the poster and pause it, it can help you figure out which example of context clues is being used here. And then you can explain that in your answer. So there is an example from IDEAS that is being used. You explain which example of context clues is being used, and then think about what bioluminescence means. Author's craft. How do the photographs and captions support the text? What do they help you understand? So why are these captions and photographs added in here? How do these text features help you? Okay, heated habitats over here. Find text evidence. You need to number your paragraphs 1, 2, 3, and 4. So all 4 paragraphs, ask and answer questions. What is a question that you can ask and answer to check your comprehension of this section? Underline the answer to your question. So once again, pretend that you're the teacher and you are creating a quiz for your students. Pick a good question based on what you have learned. Put your question here, underline the answer over here. Author's craft. How does the author help you visualize life around the vents in the deep ocean? So think about how the author uses imagery or sensory terms in order to help you create that picture in your mind. Summarize. Use your notes to orally summarize the most important ideas you learned about the deep sea. So I would think about the main ideas. What were the main ideas of this passage? And then put those main ideas in your summary. That's what I would do. You do not have to write it. You can just explain it to someone else. Make sure that you hit all the key details or main idea points and explain to somebody else what you learned. about mysterious oceans. All right, let's take a look at the vocabulary. Nothing new over here. Same process as all of the other weeks. They're going to tap back into context clues. They're giving you an example from the text from page 133. They want you to use context clues to find the meaning of these words. Sparse on page 134 and aggressive on page 134. So go back, look for the word sparse, look for the word aggressive, use the context clues in the passage to figure out what you think the meaning of these two words are. If you keep going, as usual, you will see other activities that can extend your learning if you enjoyed this particular passage. You do not have to do them. It's totally up to you. But if you would like to challenge yourself, it's there. If you have any other questions, please let me know. Okay, this is the last extra practice sheet that you will find in your packet. It's called Text Message Analysis. And I put at the top that this would be practice for making inferences. So, you have two different text message conversations that are going on. One with somebody named Anna, one with somebody named David. So what you're doing, you're going to be making inferences to answer the 6 questions for each conversation. So let's look at the conversation with Anna. How do the two people in the conversation know each other? It does not directly tell you, but you have to use, based on Anna's responses and based on the person sending the messages responses, you have to use that to infer how you think that they know each other. Are they friends? Are they family members? Are they classmates? That type of thing. Then you're going to tell me why you made that inference. So which part of the text message gave you that information? What or helped you to make that inference? What happened before this conversation took place? So it doesn't directly tell you, but once you read the conversation, you need to think about, well, what do you think happened before that? You will tell us how you made that inference, what information helped you to make the inference, what conclusion can you draw about one person in the conversation. So you can kind of make a little bit of a judgment about either Anna or the person sending the messages based on what you're reading, and then you can use evidence to support the judgment that you're making. You're going to do the same thing down here based on the conversation that the person is having with David. This is kind of more so making inferences to real life scenarios. It can be kind of tricky, but it's good practice to help you with making inferences.
All right, y'all, that is a wrap for week 6. I hope that this video was helpful for you as you work through the assignments for this week. If you have any other questions, comments, concerns, either drop it in the comment box or have your parents email me to let me know. Make sure that you are staying updated about any news that comes from the office or from us so that you don't miss any of the important, exciting news that will be coming your way pretty soon. I did hear back from several of your parents last week about classroom library books. I do appreciate you all looking for those and getting them together to be brought back to me. That is very important for making sure that next year's 5th graders are able to enjoy them the same way that you all have enjoyed them this year. So thank you for that. And I hope you all have a great week. Stay focused, finish the year strong, and I will see you all next week for our last video. Bye.